And good morning, everyone. Welcome to our little overlook here at about just shy of 9,000 feet overlooking Lake Tahoe. You know, I've had my Legend Nomad for just over 100 hours. I'm actually right at 120 hours on it, and I've been getting a ton of messages and emails of people asking me what I think of it after having flown it for a while. Are there any changes I have? Do I have any regrets switching from the Kit Fox to the Legend Cub? So I figured it's worth making a video and giving you guys basically my 100-hour review. Yeah, so for anyone that's maybe new to the channel, my name's Trent. I'm a recreational bush or backcountry pilot. I don't know. I don't fly for hire. I fly for fun. I recently switched from Kit Fox STI that was running a turbocharged Rotax over to the Legend Cub Nomad running also a turbocharged Rotax. And the reason I've been going with the turbocharged engines is like the spot I'm at right now. I do a lot of flying up at high altitude. Today, the density altitude when I landed here was about 10,300 feet, and that was at 6:30 in the morning. But just to give anyone that hasn't been following along a quick overview of what the Legend Nomad is, basically it's American Legend's AL-18, which is basically a new version of the Piper PA-18 Super Cub. They literally started with Piper's drawings for the fuselage and added every single modification in AD that came out over the decades that was in production. And then they engineered it up from there. They added some tubes to have their large baggage area, which this has one of the biggest baggage areas you're gonna find in a Cub type aircraft. But they also engineered for heavier engines hanging off the front. So the fuselage is actually quite a bit beefier than a standard PA-18 fuselage. And then for the Nomad, they went back to having a single access door. So there's not dual doors. A lot of the other Legend Cubs have dual doors, which would allow you to exit on either side for use on floats. And then the main thing is the Rotax 916 engine, which is 160 horse, fuel-injected, turbocharged engine that is FADEC, meaning full authority, dedicated engine control. It's a super smart engine that makes great power, and it makes its full takeoff horsepower up to 15,000 feet. That coupled with the Kato constant speed 82-inch prop I'm running makes incredible thrust, and I still get good cruise. Part of that might be due to the fact that the wing is modified on this. It started as a standard Super Cub wing. Guys at Legend went ahead and integrated a leading edge cuff, which extended the leading edge out about 2 inches. And it's a much tighter profile, so less blunt. The idea is it's lower drag, but since it has a bit of a droop effect in it, it acts like a wing cuff like you'd see on a Cessna, which also seems to help lower stall speed a little bit. And now, since we were putting such a light engine on the front, and we extended the leading edge of the wing out forward, we were worried about CG, so we went ahead and extended the trailing edge of the wing 2 inches out, meaning 2 inches longer, flaps and ailerons cord-wise. It equates to about 10 square feet more wing than a standard Super Cub. Wingspan is the same as a standard Super Cub, which is slightly longer than something like a Carbon Cub, which they have their wingspan cut down just a little bit. So, large wing area, relatively light plane. Now, this is one thing getting into my review part of things. Those of you that followed along through my whole build series know that I was very optimistic at the start. I wanted to see this thing at about 1,000 pounds on 35s. Pretty quickly, I realized that wasn't going to be doable, and then I changed my goal to 1,050. When we weighed it, it came in at 1,114 pounds. And with the new prop, with the longer blades, I'm currently sitting at about 1,120. Now, this plane is a 2,000 pound gross, so it gives me 800 pounds of useful load. I've got 40 gallons of fuel plus a 1.5 gallon header tank. It gives me about 39 gallons usable fuel, which for a standard cruise for me would be at about 6.5 gallons per hour. Up here at higher altitudes, I'm seeing at least 110 true at those speeds. It gives me a north of 600 miles range. And I guess while I'm already nerding out on the numbers, I might as well give you some of the other numbers. If I bump the throttle up a little bit more, I can easily see 120 true. Stall speeds. This is something that I've had a little trouble with. My stall speed or my airspeed seems to indicate high at low speeds, which is interesting because I could be landing at my house. Windsock is telling me I have a tailwind, but my Garmin's telling me I have a headwind. So what that means to me is that I'm indicating high because the crosswind or wind component in the Garmin is going to reference ground speed and airspeed or true airspeed for that altitude. But from what I'm seeing, power off, I'm indicating about 40 miles an hour at stall. If I get the power in and really hang on the prop, the lowest I've seen is 29 indicated. Again, that's indicated. I don't know how much to trust it at those high angle of attacks, as they're normally not all that accurate. What I can say is it lands slow. I mean, even here, I just came in and landed, like I said, density altitude's 10,300 feet. I don't think I rolled more than 250 feet, and I didn't use the brakes. So it's a pretty good performer at altitude, which really is what I built this plane for. So recently, when I was up in Idaho, a friend of mine, Joe Dory, is up there. And for anyone that doesn't know Joe Dory, in my opinion, he is one of the living legends of backcountry aviation. Him and his dad, Pops. Gosh, Pops are the videos that I used to watch those back in the day. He was out landing on 11,000 foot mountains with the basically stock Super Cub, way out in the middle of nowhere by himself. I want to hear what he thinks about the Legend.
Gosh dang.
Yeah, it punches a little harder than 160 horse, huh?
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
You like it?
I love it. It's wonderful, and that thing just makes amazing power. That turbo takes a little getting used to because it's, you know, just I'm not used to it. I can tell that extra wing area on the wing. I mean, I can feel it, and I can feel in the roll rate. It's just a little bit
Heavier.
I wouldn't say it's sluggish, but it's just a little bit heavier. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and also you probably what were you seeing cruise speeds when you're up there? True. I mean, probably.
I never paid any attention.
Oh yeah,
I was just having fun.
Because that's the thing too. You're not used to a Cub cruising at 110.
Well, I could tell it was way faster. No, I couldn't. I didn't. Yeah. But just incredible performance. Thank you.
Of course. I'm glad. I mean, you know way more about Cubs than I do. So, needless to say, he was blown away. Now, I was really happy that Joe flew that for me because obviously, you know, now I've got 130 something hours in Cubs, but 120 hours of it are in my Cub. And so I don't really know any different. And so for those of you that have been following along for a long time, I flew a Kit Fox for almost 10 years. And over those 10 years, I built it into what I was trying to have as the ultimate backcountry or STOL, real world STOL plane. And I say real world because I don't have much interest in doing the competition stuff. And really, when you choose to go down that route of building a competition airplane, there's so many compromises you have to make on your plane, both comforts and safety-wise, that they're just compromises I'm not willing to take. So this airplane is not built for competition, nor was my Kit Fox. Both of them are fairly well outfitted. But coming from the Kit Fox, that's going to be the biggest thing. Do I regret the switch over to the Legend Cub? Now, the short answer is no. I'm absolutely loving this airplane. And really, to give the side-by-side comparison, it is a little bit of comparing apples to oranges in a couple senses. The Cub's just got so much bigger of a wing. And with real flaps, instead of flaperons, it's much easier to get this plane slow and land slow and take off short and all that. This plane is just designed to do that. Now, the Kit Fox is a fairly good performer in that realm. One of the biggest differences between the Kit Fox and the Legend Cub, aside from side-by-side seating, which is a preference thing, which we'll get into in a minute, would be the flaperons and the sportiness that comes with those. So basically, with flaperons on a Kit Fox, you have effectively almost full wing length ailerons that are very effective down to really slow speeds. And the way that they're separated from the wing on the Kit Fox, there's really no point where you get aileron reversal, meaning you can lift a stalled wing in a Kit Fox, where you don't want to do that with standard ailerons. Basically, if you're at critical angle and you're stalled, you go to lift a wing, you just added to the drag and the angle of attack of that wing and just brought it way deep into the stall. So you try to lift a wing and that wing drops even more. So Kit Fox is a little bit sportier feel, a little bit more authority at really low speeds, although I don't seem to have a problem with that in this plane, probably because I have the bigger ailerons. And then the side-by-side seating versus tandem. Now, this is 100% a personal preference. I've taken a lot of people on rides in this plane, and almost universally everyone loves riding in the back of this seat and has no problems with it. I've had one or two people say, I do kind of miss sitting in the front. Now, at the same time, I've had one or two people say that they prefer sitting in the back because they can see out both sides. The Kit Fox, you could really only see out of one side. And the placement of the seating position in the Kit Fox, as well as the cowling and the glare shield and panel, doesn't give you the best forward visibility. If you're tall enough, you can see over it decently, but not like I see out of this. But with that in mind, a shorter person sitting in the front of the Kit Fox still isn't seeing out the front all that well. Haley had a good 2 or 3 inch booster seat that she'd sit on in the Kit Fox just to kind of see out the front. When you factor that in, being able to see out both sides perfectly seems to be an advantage in this plane, but again, it's going to be a personal preference. Haley does seem more comfortable flying in this thing by a long shot, and I think that just comes from the solid doors, making you feel a little bit more contained, whereas the Kit Fox had clear doors that went right down to your hip and kind of led you feel like you could fall out of the plane. The Legend just feels a little more secure. Now, another thing, the Kit Fox's wings, they have a little bit of flex and give to them. So when you're in rough air, they're out there and they move a bit. It's perfectly normal. That's what they've always done. That's what they're designed to do. Cub wing is much more rigid. I don't see any flex in that thing. And there is something deep down in your brain, if you're scared of flying, when you look out and see parts of the airplane moving, it makes you uncomfortable. Whereas in the Cub, looking out and seeing that everything just looks rock solid, it seems to give just a little bit of a peace of mind to both the pilot and the passenger. Now, from a pilot standpoint, tandem I think is better. Just the visibility you can't beat. I mean, I can see directly over the front, out both sides. It's in your center line. It's never hard to figure out where to put your spinner over the center line because you're just sitting right on center line. So you're never worried about like kind of landing side loaded or any of that. It's just much easier from a pilot perspective. But really, if you're going to compare the Legend to the Kit Fox, the biggest thing that the Kit Fox might beat the Legend at is just value. Obviously, the Kit Fox is a much cheaper aircraft. However, once you do a factory-built Kit Fox versus one of these, the Legend Cub's still more expensive, but it's more like in the realm of about $100,000 more expensive, which I say that lightly, that's still a lot of money. So if someone is out there shopping around for a STOL aircraft and they want to do similar flying to me and they're kind of saying, should I build a Legend or should I build a Kit Fox? Where I currently stand, if budget's no option, I'm finding that the Legend is basically a no compromise aircraft. At this point, you know, having flown the plane from Florida to California all the way up to Idaho, it's been on multiple camping trips. I've flown it in cold weather, in hot weather, high and low. I've flown it empty, fully loaded. I've landed at places that I never took my Kit Fox. I've now gone through enough with this plane to give you guys the overall review, and realistically, I'm just blown away by this plane. So to me, you know, when it came down to the choice of do I want to sacrifice comfort and safety to shed weight on my airplane, my answer was no. So that's why this plane is a little heavier than some of the other competitors out there. It is just a very robust, tough-built aircraft. Track record and the history of these aircraft show there's never been a fatal crash of a Legend Cub. Well, I say that there was one guy that unfortunately his fuel caps weren't put on correctly from the fuel guy. He was flying over the Great Lakes, starved the plane of fuel, and ended up drowning. I wouldn't really count that as a fatal accident because it really wasn't the plane's fault. From a safety standpoint, they're really well built. Most of the buyers of Legend Cubs have been well-informed buyers. They're not first-time airplane buyers. Normally, they flew a couple other options, then realized the Legend was the ticket. So all of that's added to a really good, safety and crash record. But what that leads to is the lowest insurance premiums of any Cub, certified or non-certified. Now, this is just going through Clemens Insurance, which if anyone flies and doesn't have Clemens Insurance, you should give them a call. They're great people. They do off-airport backcountry flying, and they get it. And for me, for this Cub at a $350,000 whole value, my premium's $3,300 a year, and that was with about 1,300 or 1,400 hours total time, and only 10 hours in a Cub. So I'm hoping next year it'll actually go down from there. But you know, one of the benefits of the Legend Cub is actually having really affordable insurance premiums for such a high whole value aircraft. Now, I want to go back to the weight thing really quick because that's something I've been hung up on. And I was flying with my buddy Carl the other day. He's an ex-Air Force pilot, flew Blackhawks, then F-16s, then F-35s. He's now an airline captain, and he has a Super Cub. And he came and took a ride with me in the Nomad, and he was just blown away by the performance of this thing. And I mentioned not bad for how heavy it is, right? And he said it pretty funny that he said, Trent, you need to stop talking about the weight because that doesn't matter. What matters is the performance. And he's 100% right. I've taken off next to the Carbon Cub UL Cub, which was about 200 pounds lighter. I took off in the exact same distance, climbed the same, and I cruise exactly as fast, if not maybe faster, because of that wing and the covered landing gear. That's one thing. If you guys want an actual like side-by-side review of the UL versus the Nomad, let me know. I would love to make one of those. So I want to try to take a second to talk about the things I'd change. That's one thing that a lot of people ask now. The landing lights I have on here, completely overkill. They're the Fly Watt Prodigies, and I don't fly at night. They have both landing as well as taxi lights, and they're incredibly bright, but they're also pretty heavy. So all of that considered, I guess in hindsight, I would have ran with a less, ridiculously big and heavy landing light on both wings. Other than that, nothing I would change on the aircraft. Obviously, I have a lot more USB power for all my cameras than most people would do. So if you're looking at building one of these, I don't think you need all of that. Any other issues with the plane? There's a couple places where the leading edge of this plane, which the leading edge is carbon fiber, with that leading edge cuff integrated in there, we weren't able to get an aluminum skin to match that radius very cleanly. So we ended up having to make it out of carbon fiber. It's definitely overkill as far as strength and cost and everything goes. But the way that the edges butt together, after a bunch of heat and cooling cycles and, rough air and everything, there's started to be a little bit of movement in there. What it's led to is a tiny little wrinkle in the fabric right where the seams join on the wing. Now, it's purely cosmetic. It's not a concern safety-wise or anything like that, but, that was one thing. The other little thing, when I glued, I have this fairing on my landing gear that I glued on so that I could run the brake line down the fairing and then cover the gear with fabric. Now that fairing, I didn't put enough glue on, and it popped off a little bit. So the fabric's still on there, but it's a little loose on the left side. Again, not a structural concern, I just didn't use enough glue. But those are the only two things I've had any issues with or, even noticed on the plane. The overall notes, I do not regret moving from the Kit Fox to the Cub. For one, I've been having a lot of fun learning the Cub, getting used to a new aircraft, everything's new and exciting again. But also, the Cub is just much more stable and relaxing to fly. The Kit Fox is so short coupled that the tail doesn't follow it quite as well as a Cub, so you end up flying the rudder at all times, which is fun. So if you're looking for just a sport plane to go out and blow holes in the sky and rip and chase canyons and all that, the Kit Fox is a great option for that. It is sportier, but it's also more energy or more fatiguing on the pilot if you're flying at long distances and in rough air and all that. You're all over those rudders at all times, whereas the Cub, the tail just follows it. The seating position being more upright, to me is a little bit more comfortable over long stretches, although I will say after spending 11 hours in one day in this thing, I was also not loving it. I don't think anyone should spend 11 hours a day in a plane.
Stiff from the day of flying.
We made it, dude. I found that landing and taking off this airplane in rough and rugged environments and at high altitudes like this, it's much easier. So not to say that you don't have to have the skill set, it just means that you don't have to be as much on your A game or on super high alert, and it's not as much stress on the pilot to go out and do this kind of stuff. And while I do love flying and I do love the challenge of landing at difficult spots, I don't like that you always have to be on edge. That's kind of where I put it with the Kit Fox. You kind of have to be on your A game to land the thing just anywhere, on pavement or non-pavement, whatever. And then you gotta be on like expert mode to land it really short in rough areas. So to sum this up and go long story short, after 120 hours in the Legend Cub flying virtually coast to coast through the Idaho backcountry and all around different temperatures and climates, I'm in love with it. I wouldn't change a dang thing. I am very, very happy with my switch here. Do I miss my Kit Fox? Yes, at times. If I had both sitting in the hangar, which would I be pushing out? Probably be the Legend Cub every day of the week. So in the next big trip, 2 weeks from now, I'm taking this baby up to Alaska. So we're gonna go put it in the last frontier where the real bush pilots fly and go see if we can't hang and get some photos next to glaciers and just go play up there in what looks like the coolest playground for a bush plane. Before I wrap this up, I do want to take a quick second to give a huge shout out and thank you to my friends over at Squarespace for sponsoring yet another video and being a long-term supporter of this channel. And for those of you that don't know, Squarespace, the ultimate way to build a website and run your business. You used to use one of their templates that are award-winning, which you can still use, to create your own beautiful professional looking website, but they've been harnessing the power of artificial intelligence. With their new design AI, you go in and you just tell Squarespace what your website is about and what you want it to be. And they will use AI to help you design a website from scratch. And they even have ways that you can generate the content, being all the blurbs, the write-ups in your website using AI, so you don't even have to type everything up. I do recommend, though, that you go and kind of tweak and cater it to your own custom one, but it's a really awesome way to build a website with zero experience necessary. And they have features for every industry. They've got their new Acuity scheduling, which allows you to book and schedule your clients through your website. They've obviously got every single storefront option as an online store. They accept payments from every big major payment platform through Squarespace Payments. Obviously, they connect directly to socials, and everything is optimized for both desktop as well as mobile. So anyway, if you haven't yet, head over to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to purchase, make sure you use code Trent Palmer at checkout. That'll get you 10% off. And with that, thank you again, Squarespace, for sponsoring this one. Thank you guys for tuning in. You guys know the drill. Like this video if you do. Subscribe if you haven't. Come be my wingman. See you on the next one. Peace.